Let me ask you about China. You just alluded to the fact that we're treating the Russians baselessly as an enemy. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you see China in the same way? Do you see them necessarily as an enemy of the United States who needs to be treated as an enemy? Or do you think we can also foster more collaborative or at least less antagonistic relationships with Beijing?
Well, I do see them as an adversary of the United States. I think they're competitive with us, they're ambitious, and the indications are that the Chinese leadership does want to dominate the globe and have access to the natural resources in the developing world. But the worst thing, the Chinese do not want to compete with us militarily. And they shouldn't. I mean, we have 3 times the military budget that they do. We spend more on our military than the top 10 nations combined. And we have bases we have 800 bases all over the world. The Chinese have 1.5 bases outside of China. So they're not looking for a military competition, and we shouldn't be either. I'm not scared of America competing with China on an economic plane. And I think we should welcome that competition. It would be good for the Chinese, good for the Americans, and good for the rest of the world. We should welcome that and we should de-escalate the military confrontations, take the pressure off of China and Taiwan, de-escalate that controversy and let them figure it out for themselves. And let's compete with them. Let's close most of those bases, bring the money home, get the peace dividend, rebuild our industrial base, and have an economic competition against the Chinese that's friendly, that's congenial, but that's vigorous and robust. And I'm not scared of that. I'm not scared that America cannot outcompete China head-to-head on economic issues.
One of the flashpoints, obviously, between the U.S.-Chinese relationship is Taiwan. The peace has been maintained between the two countries based on this one China policy that said everybody recognizes Taiwan as part of China, but the U.S. would maintain strategic ambiguity in the event of what it would do if China invaded Taiwan and tried to physically control it. Biden, on several occasions, whether planned or otherwise, seemed to have abandoned that 5-decade-old posture of the U.S. government by saying, no, I absolutely would use military force in order to protect Taiwan in the event the Chinese invaded. Do you think that China would actually invade Taiwan if we did what you recommend, namely kind of de-escalate, pull back a little bit from surrounding their country with all the bases we have? And what would be your posture if asked what you would do if China did invade Taiwan? Would you maintain this ambiguity, or would you agree with Biden to say, no, we would absolutely go to war with China to stop them?
Well, that strategic ambiguity only works up to the point of invasion. So once they invade, then your policy is no longer ambiguous. Strategic ambiguity, I think, is the best posture for the United States, and I intend to maintain it. So I'm not going to tell you what I would do on this, TV show and lose that advantage. I don't think the Chinese want a military confrontation with Taiwan. Taiwan is armed to the teeth. And it's been preparing for 40 years for a war with China if there's an invasion, to repel an invasion, and it would be a catastrophe for China and the rest of the world if Taiwan went to war and we lost the source of a lot of our computer chips and many of the electronics that are now used in Taiwan that are absolutely vital to our industries. The Chinese have the same dependence. So I don't think the Chinese want to go to war with Taiwan. They may exert pressures to have a greater degree of reunification like they did with Hong Kong. But, I think we should try to let them settle it on their own before we start making military threats and rattling sabers, which I think just makes it more difficult for everybody and makes it more likely that we'll end up in a military confrontation.
I think you answered this question in the previous answer, but I just want to be very clear about it because I'm super interested in it, which is you described the way in which you thought, and I think clearly it's true, that the U.S. has been provoking Russia, kind of expanding NATO right up into its borders, right on the most sensitive part of their border, changing their government, the democratically elected government, from a pro-Russia to an anti-Russia government. Imagine if the Chinese did that to a government in Mexico while arming them, all the other analogies that you pointed out in the way that we're kind of encircling Russia, making them more aggressive and paranoid. Do you think we're doing the same thing when it comes to China with all of these bases we're putting in Guam and Australia and South Korea and the Philippines, including nuclear-tipped missiles, sending B-52s that are nuclear capable? Do you think a lot of what is happening is that the U.S. itself is being provocative unnecessarily?
Yeah, I think it's the same people. It's the neocons in the White House and the State Department who want a war with China. I don't think they're ambiguous about it. You know, they believe that the United States should use its military force while we still have this incredible superiority to dominate the globe with violence. That is the entire philosophy of the neocons, and I think it's been a catastrophe. Every venture that they've brought us into has been a cataclysm, and a China war will be the end of the world.
Without question.
And they don't seem to care. They do not seem to care.
They do not. I don't know. We seem to have lost our fear of nuclear war. It's absolutely incredible. Like, it's something that just cannot happen, even though we got close on several occasions to having it happen. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update. Catch our full shows for free, live weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, and join our locals community at greenwald.locals.com for all of my written journalism, exclusive after-show Q&As, and more.